in that third quarter?
We suck. No defense. Can't score. Man, that's not this third quarter. Every third quarter that we played this season, we come out slow, lackadaisical, offensively and defensively.
Now, believe me, I was not planning on making any videos on the LA Lakers anytime soon. As one, I feel like that's just a boring topic and everyone makes videos on the Lakers. Two, I also knew that they were a new team that was going to need some time to gel. And in my mind, I was giving them 30 games to figure out their chemistry. Originally it was going to be 20 games, but there's been plenty of injuries to their star trio, which definitely should be concerned due to the age of their roster and some of the histories of their star players. But the real reason I want to talk about the Lakers is due to this new narrative that in order to fix their problems around their spacing and defense, that they need to play LeBron at center. And after just reading that narrative and hearing about it, it's just very clear what the Lakers' problems are to me, and I just felt like I should talk about that, so let's get into it. Now, the Lakers at the time I'm recording this video are currently 10-11, which in and of itself is an extremely disappointing record due to the expectations that were put on this team. It's even worse when you take a deeper look into it and see the competition they have faced, as according to B-Ball Reference, the Los Angeles Lakers have had the 7th easiest schedule in the league. And yet, they still have a negative record. They're still a sub 500 team, and 5 of those games have gone to overtime. Now, one was a win against the Miami Heat, but the other 3 teams they played have been subpar, and one of their losses did come against the Sacramento Kings, who just fired their head coach and were missing 2 starters, and the Los Angeles Lakers had a 13-point lead in the fourth quarter. Now, clearly with all these issues the Lakers have faced, there's plenty of blame to go around, and despite that, there seems to be 2 main scapegoats for the Los Angeles Lakers struggles, and right off the bat, I'm going to let you know that no, I do not believe Russell Westbrook is the main issue for the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, the reason for this is because Russ is exactly who we thought he was. His fit with this team was always awkward, to say at the least, due to his need for the ball and his lack of a jump shot and his turnover-prone ways. Yet the Lakers still brought him in on board. So it's of my belief that if you're going to go out of your way to sign and trade for a guy like Russell Westbrook, you should try to adjust your team and your scheme to accommodate for his deficiencies. There's absolutely no way in hell that you thought Russ in year 13 is going to make significant strides to his game and change all these weaknesses that he's always had in year 13 just to fit with his roster. An unreasonable request. Now, that's not to say that Russ isn't as fault for his own fault as a player. There's no reason for him to be making some of these absurd mistakes with his shot selection and poor defense in year 13. There's no excuse for that, especially in OKC where he just ball washed and allowed 2 easy layups that pretty much cost him the game. But you knew you were getting this with Russ, so I don't see how the Lakers can have buyer's regret when they got exactly what they thought they were going to get. Now, another gigantic scapegoat for this team is Frank Vogel, and I do believe that he deserves a fair share of blame for this team. His rotations have been poor, his lineups have been questionable, and overall the sloppy play from this team falls on the coach's responsibility. This is not a well-disciplined team. There's numerous times they have terrible communication on defense and allow easy baskets just off backdoor cuts that should not happen, and they often have multiple times where they just don't know who's supposed to switch and when they're supposed to switch. It's just awful, and he's a defensive coach, yet this defense is terrible. And I do believe going forward the Lakers should have internal discussions on whether or not they believe Vogel is going to be the right man for this job, because to put it simply, this is an extremely difficult job that I don't think a lot of coaches would be able to handle. And that leads me into the biggest problem with this team. Rob Pelinka. Now, this is the man who put together this entire roster. It was his decision to put together a team of older players and players with questionable jump shots, and the ones who he did bring in who can shoot are exclusively one-way players. Now, we're 21 games into the season. You have a terrible defense, terrible spacing, a multitude of players have been injured or are currently injured. Now your Los Angeles Lakers are sitting here with a 10-11 record, with all their biggest question marks coming into the season being answered by saying, yes, those are massive weaknesses in this roster. In a league where 3-and-D reigns supreme and every team is trying to get another 3-and-D player, trying to build a roster, just like the Warriors did a couple years back, Rob Pelinka thought he would get real cute and just zig where everyone's at. He decided he's going to build a team that's relying on big men and post play and rebounding and physicality, and it's completely blown up in his face as he had absolutely zero failsafe on if this team wasn't going to fit. He gave Frank Vogel a roster in which he gave zero consideration to fit, scheme, or chemistry. And that falls solely on Rob Pelinka's shoulders. But I also believe there is another culprit at fault here, and that's Anthony Davis. Now, I know Anthony Davis is an incredible talent, and his numbers don't look that bad, but you just have to watch the Lakers play. Now, Anthony Davis, for whatever reason, refuses to play the center position and is hell-bent on being a power forward in a league where the power forward has basically gone extinct. And this forces the Lakers, with their already abysmal spacing, to have to play another non-shooter around a team with a bunch of non-shooters, which has made it so ridiculous that there's now discussions for LeBron to play the 5 because he can shoot. Do you know how ridiculous that sounds to ask LeBron in year 19 to play the 5 because Anthony Davis doesn't want to? The supposed best big man in the league doesn't want to be a big and is asking his 37-year-old teammate to step up and be the 5. It's absurd. And to make matters worse, for all this bitching that Anthony Davis does about playing the 5 and how he doesn't want to do it, he wants to be a 4, he's not even hitting his jump shots. So he's not even spacing the floor for the Lakers. He's currently the worst shooter in league history, I believe, for like 2 attempts per game. Like, he's the worst shooter in the league. And for some reason, he loves to settle for jump shots. Now, I believe part of that is due because of the Lakers' abysmal spacing. But the reason for the Lakers' abysmal spacing is because Anthony Davis wants to be a 4. And therefore, they're putting DeAndre Jordan in the game, clogging up driving lanes for Anthony Davis and for Russell Westbrook and for LeBron James. This is a team that you want to defend them by letting them shoot. That's how you defend all of their best players. And Anthony Davis is just falling into that trap. And the reason I'm harder on Anthony Davis, unlike the other problems with this roster, like injuries and their lack of talent, things that you can't control in the season, Anthony Davis can control what position he plays. He can make this sacrifice for the team and thrive as his natural role as a 5, but for whatever reason he just is hell-bent on being a 4. And because of that, and the way Rob Pelinka built this team, it optimizes none of their skill sets. It forces Russ to be this off-ball player he doesn't have these driving lanes anymore because the paint's so clogged. It makes LeBron have to be a spot-up shooter, and it's absurd, and it forces Anthony Davis to shoot even more jump shots instead of being in the post like a big should. That's where he's the best at. Outside of the bubble, he's always been a below average shooter. And the sooner he realizes that, and the Lakers realize that, and someone tells him the truth that he needs to play the 5, the Lakers aren't going to have much success in the playoffs. And for the sake of this team, I hope someone does it, and I hope that they make this change so that we can have this great playoff run and LeBron can get his proper send-off. But anyways, as always, Greg signing off.